Kill and eat sacred cattle kept at Thrinacia, the sacred island. Helios was there to see it when no one else would, so he informs Zeus, and Zeus punishes them by throwing a thunderbolt at their ship. Nothing escapes the eye of Helios, or should I say, the eye of Ra. Helios is one of the 12 Titans. All the gods gathered in front of Zeus to cast lots to see which place or country they would rule over. Helios happened to be absent for this and missed out. So, Zeus gave him the rule of the sky and of the island of Rhodes, and married Rhodos, the daughter of Poseidon. And they have 7 sons who found the civilization of Rhodes, where the megalith colossal of Rhodes, one of the ancient wonders of the world, would stand, in honor of Helios himself. His 7 sons were known as the Heliadae. They were Ochimus, Cheriphus, Macarius, Actus, Tanagus, Triopas, and Candalas. They were expert astrologers and seafarers, and the first to introduce sacrifices to Athena at Rhodes. Tanagus was the most highly endowed of the Heliadae, the sons of Helios, most favored by Helios himself. He was the best at science and the best looking, and so his other brothers, Macarius, Candylus, Triopas, and Actus, were jealous of him. So what they did is they found him and killed him in their jealousy. Those 4 sons had to flee the wrath of Helios after what they did. Macarius fled to Lesbos. Candylus flees to Kos. Triopas flees to Caria. And Actus flees to Egypt. Now Actus goes down into Egypt and finds the city of Heliopolis. But what's so striking about this story is it looks really similar to Genesis 37, where Joseph, one of the 12 sons of Jacob, is the most favored and best looking favorite of Jacob, where his jealous brethren tried to kill him, but he survives, and he goes down into Egypt and gets sold by the Midianites into slavery in Egypt. Now, at first glance, yes, the stories are different in many ways. One of them has 7 sons, the other one has 12 sons. In one of them, the jealous brethren kill the favored son. And with Joseph, he actually survives. But there are some striking similarities which we point out. In both stories, we have a bunch of sons with one great son who is highly favored over the rest, and the other ones are jealous. And in both stories, one of the brothers flees to Egypt. Now, at first you're like, okay, that's not that crazy, until you figure out that Joseph, he marries Potiphar's daughter. Potiphar is the high priest of the city Heliopolis. So now we have both characters that flee to Egypt end up in the city of Heliopolis in some way or another. It gets even crazier. According to Josephus in Against Apion, Book 1, Chapter 26, verse 250, it was also reported that the priests who ordained their polity and their laws was by birth of Heliopolis, and his name Osiriph, or Osiris, who was the god of Heliopolis. But that when he was gone over to these people, his name was changed, and then he was called Moses. This is what the Egyptians relate about the Jews, with much more, which I admit for the sake of brevity. But still, Manetho goes on that after this, Amenophis returned back from Ethiopia with a great army, as did his son Ramses, and another army also, and that both of them joined battle with the shepherds and the polluted people, and beat them, and killed a great many of them, and pursued them to the bounds of Syria. Turns out that Manetho himself was a high priest of Heliopolis. Now, Alexander the Great, when he went to Egypt, the first city he went to after he entered the gates and set up his garrisons was Heliopolis. And upon leaving Heliopolis, they decided to build Alexandria. Alexandria's library, according to Manetho, got most of its information of Egyptian history from the library of Heliopolis. Manetho tells us that Heliopolis had records of the world going back thousands of years to the Atlanteans. When Alexandria was built, they took most of the resources from Heliopolis and brought it up to Alexandria and basically swapped the center of learning and philosophy from Heliopolis to Alexandria. Now, Moses is the lawgiver and the one who sets up the state of Israel. Solon was said to have traveled down to Heliopolis to learn the ways of the priests of Heliopolis, and then brought back the laws to Athens. So we have, in both cases, a lawgiver coming out of Heliopolis and bringing back civilization to the people in their respected lands. Going back to the Joseph and Helios comparison, in both myths we have two stories that have sons that are jealous of another son, one of them going down into Egypt and settling in Heliopolis, and then laws coming out of Heliopolis in the form of Solon the lawgiver, who got his name Solon from Sol in Heliopolis, where he was renamed, and Moses, who brings out laws from Heliopolis as well. When we put that together with what Josephus, Manetho, and Plutarch tell us about the greatness of Heliopolis and its records of the ancient past, teachings of philosophy, we have no choice but to take consideration, is this a very important ancient city to people who wrote the Bible or Greek mythology? Herodotus states that the priests of Heliopolis were best informed in matters of history of all Egyptians. Heliopolis flourished as a seat of learning during the Greek period. The schools of philosophy and astronomy are claimed to have been frequented by Orpheus, Homer, Pythagoras, Plato, as well as Solon. Ptolemy II had Manetho collect all of his history of the ancient kings of Egypt from its archives and bring him to Alexandria, just as he had 70 elders of the Jews bring the history of Canaan. An inscription on the obelisk of Heliopolis reads, "The daughter of Amun-Ra, who is in his heart, his unique one, who come into being through him, the glorious image of the Lord of all, whose beauty the souls of Heliopolis created, who seizes the two lands like the self-created one, glorious nursling of the two magicians who Ammon himself caused to ascend to the throne. One of the most ancient Egyptian texts from the Egyptian Book of the Dead states, "Behold now, O ye luminaries in Heliopolis, ye people in Kir Abba, the God hath borne, his cordage hath been completed, and the instrument wherewith he maketh his way, he has grasped firmly. Osiris new is strong with them to direct the implement of the gods." And then it says on the bottom, "Shall be said over a figure of the deceased, which shall be placed in a model of a boat of the sun. And behold, he that reciteth this shall be washed, and shall be ceremonially pure. And he shall have burnt incense before Ra, and shall offer wine, cakes, and roasted fowl for the journey of the deceased in the boat of Ra. Now every Ku, which is a mummy, for whom such things are done, shall have an existence among the living ones, and he shall never perish, and he shall have being like unto that of the holy God. No evil thing whatsoever shall attack him, and he shall be like unto a happy Ku in Amentet, and he shall not die a second time. He shall eat and he shall drink in the presence of Osiris each day. He shall be born again with the kings of the north and of the south, and each and every day he shall quaff water at the fountainhead. He shall come forth by day, even those Horus. He shall live and shall become unto a god, and he shall be hymned among the living ones, even as is Ra, each and every day, continually and regularly forever." When we look at the Temple of Heliopolis, we notice that it has a similar layout to the Temple of Jerusalem, a rectangle with a square with a Holy of Holies within the middle. There is another temple that is designed this way in Canaan, known as Baalbek, but also this exact location was named Heliopolis by the Romans. The god that was worshipped there is Jupiter Heliopolis, a sort of equivalent of Amun-Ra. Amun being Jupiter, Ra being Helios, Amun-Ra, or Jupiter Heliopolis. After the war between Mark Antony and Augustus, when Mark Antony lost and killed himself, Augustus, upon visiting Heliopolis, decided to bring back the great obelisk, and it is still standing in Rome today at St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. When Akhenaten in the 18th dynasty became pharaoh, he introduced a henotheistic worship of the deified solar disk. As part of his construction projects, he built a Heliopolitan temple named Elevating Aten, whose stones can be seen in some of the gates of Cairo's medieval city. The cult of the Menevis bull, another embodiment of the sun, had its altar here as well. The bull's formed burial ground was situated north of the city. Now, in this very area of greater Memphis, which stretches out for Heliopolis, Giza, and Saqqara, these two bulls, Apis and Menevis, were located in Memphis and in Heliopolis. And even Alexander the Great offered sacrifice to the Apis bull on his way through Egypt. What I find is very interesting is that when we get into the 3rd century, there was a Syrian named Heliopolis, who was the high priest of the temple in Syria, Allah Jabal, the god of the mountain, but he's also a sun god, Heliopolis. He became the Roman emperor and introduced this cult into the Roman imperial cult. According to Cassius Dio, Emperor Heliopolis also introduced the rites of the Christians, Samaritans, and Jews and combined it with Heliopolis. The historian Augustus says, he enshrined Heliopolis on the Palatine Hill next to the temple of the emperors and built a temple for him, being eager to transfer to that temple both the emblem of the mother goddess and the fire of Vesta, the palladium, the sacred shields, and all the objects sacred to the Romans, so that no god should be worshipped at Rome except Heliopolis. He used to say furthermore that the religion of the Jews and the Samaritans and the rites of the Christians ought to be transferred there, so that the priesthood of Heliopolis might include the mysteries of every cult. This would plant the seeds for Roman religion going up to the time of Constantine. What that did was, in the eastern realms of the Roman Empire, the two biggest competing cults became Christianity and Sol Invictus, modern version of the worship of the sun god, the unconquerable sun. There are coins of Helios being titled the unconquerable sun, going back to the 1st century. So when Constantine became the emperor, he decided that these rites are the most important ones, and he became a Christian. But the unconquerable sun, Sol Invictus, was still arguably the most popular god to the people of the Roman legions. And it wasn't until the time of Theodosius where this Sol Invictus cult would be replaced by pure Christianity. The book of Isaiah, chapter 19, gives a prophecy of the destruction of Egypt. But in verse 18, it says, "On that day there shall be 5 cities in the land of Egypt, speaking the language of Canaan, and swearing by the Lord of hosts. One shall be called the city of the sun."